Now, Kotaku posted a piece of news here of a interesting real-life Transformer car. Now, this is the first time that I've seen something like this exist. I know a lot of times whenever some customizing guys or some car company guys, they kind of get together and try to make their own little Transformer car. I know there was a BMW one.
Yeah.
Maybe I think it was like 2 years ago. And I know, all my non-Transformer friends, on Facebook or whatever, they'll always, send me this going like, hey, check this out. It's a real life transforming car. So, this thing is something that's not a new idea, but it's the first time ever that something like this has existed where it actually is a collaboration with that of Takara-Tomy. And so we have this, this car here, which is a collaboration between Takara-Tomy, Brave Robotics. I like that it's called Brave Robotics. That's another Takara-Tomy subline related to Transformers from the 90s. And Asratec, working on this project called J-Deite, I want to say, J-Deite Ride. And it's their version of a transforming car, but their emphasis is also that the cockpit isn't something that like it'll kill you if you sit inside it.
Yeah, like that infamous animation from the Clerks cartoon.
Yes.
Where they pile into a car, the car drives off for a bit, and then it transforms, and you see the blood coming out from the sides of the car.
There you go. So I mean, and again, like those previous transforming car robots that have existed in the past in real life, like a lot of times they don't factor that in. And I mean, this one here, it looks like they're really going for something that not only is it a functioning actual vehicle, not only is it something that transforms, but it also looks like it's something that walks in a limited capacity too. The one thing that I find funny with this is how much it looks like Alternator Smokescreen. And kind of, I almost feel like
feels
maybe,
like deja vu. Wasn't there another one that looked kind of like Alternator Smokescreen?
Well, it's just, I find it funny because like when we made that first real big jump to alternators, and we had like, oh, here's these, real life cars.
Yeah, these by 1 by something,
Yeah,
cars.
I think it was 1 by 24 scale or whatever. Excuse me, 1 by 34 scale, and they have like legitimate, innards and cockpits and stuff like that, and seats, and like there was a big healthy effort of that. And Smokescreen was the very first one with that Subaru Impreza WRX STI. It's interesting that this one here, it kind of like, I mean, out of all the Transformers that well, that's what I'm saying. Like, out of all the Transformers that exist, I mean, you could either argue Smokescreen or, to a mild extent, Blue Streak, but this is really more Smokescreen, if anything. And it's just, it's really cool. It's really cool, like how well the transformation works. Some of the video where it goes back into the car mode, I don't think they 100% have that down in pack. Where there's still some pieces that I feel don't like clip in properly. But in general, it's pretty impressive. But I mean, the only thing is, I'm not like super, like so many people were sending this to me, and I was like, I'm not like super impressed by this, mainly because there's been quite a few guys, private and big companies, that have been trying to do this. And as someone who like pays attention to the car scene and stuff like that, again, I remember like I think it was like 2 years ago, someone did this with a BMW. Yeah. And it was pretty snazzy when they did it with the BM. So I think that the only thing that's really like different this time around is the availability of the driver remaining in the car, and also, from what it looks like, the fact that the robot is actually able to take some steps forward. So
one thing I'll give them is just the cockpit aspect of it, because I mean, even in the Transformers movie, when whichever character is inside Bumblebee, and then he transforms and he has to kind of hold them outside of him while he does a crazy dodge, and he throws them back in when he transforms again, is also admitting that if you stayed in his vehicle mode, you would die.
Well, maybe like not so much. So much so Bumblebee.
But you know what I mean, though.
Like, yeah, I do. Well, see, and that's the thing too, is that one thing that a lot of people
meant to stay in there.
Well, it's especially someone like me who who works in mechanics, one thing that I always factor in is like, someone like Bumblebee. For anyone that's familiar with, like, let's say the original G1 Bumblebee toy, for his arms to transform, you got to have like independent suspension on those arms. Because right away the wheels are going out, and then it's like, well, then how does the brakes work? Because then the brake lines are all they're going to be bent like crazy, because now the brake lines can't go to the brake pads and the brake disc.
Does Zen Wendell, does one truly need brake lines if you're sentient?
Well, it's
like,
more.
What are your brake lines in your legs?
It's more so that if they wanted to make Bumblebee real. Like,
oh, okay, my bad.
That's my line of thinking. It's like if they
real.
Like Blaster, his original Microman toy was a functioning radio.
Yeah.
So like making that a real thing or it being fictional was something that was doable. We've had, at least in the case of Browning and the Microman Megatron, which was the Walter P-38 robo, they shot little
pellets
or BBs. I mean, they weren't a functioning, gun, but I could almost see, given certain areas and how a gunpowder pistol works to begin with, how it could still probably be a reality to do that if someone really wanted to. They could probably make a functioning, working gun Megatron if it has a proper plunger and a gunpowder bullet in there.
Yeah,
but when it comes,
I would say something that, like, sad to say, this isn't technically Transformers. I would say this would harken back to Diaclone, if anything.
Of course. Yeah,
would be
that's
more.
Why.
If I had to be all nerdy about it, no.
Yeah, but that's why. So when you get to stuff like cars and everything, as casual fans or hardcore fans that just enjoy the fiction, it's one thing. When you have guys like me who work around vehicles all the time, sometimes it a lot of Transformer characters, their transformations would not be able to exist in real life because of the way certain pieces move around. I mean, you could go like, as I always say, the simple design of, say, like a Jazz or Prowl, right away, where the wheels separate from the front of the engine and stuff, and you go, well, where does the drivetrain go? Where does the axle, for the back or the front, if it does have one? If it doesn't have one, so then it's an independent suspension. Where does that go when all of a sudden it goes on the feet? There's so many things. I mean, the only time that kind of stuff works is, a good example I always say is when you look back at, they did the Tyco way back in the day for G1, did a RC line, like the Tyco RC racetracks, and so they did some Transformer ones, and I believe the characters' names was Freezon and something else. They gave them some weird names. It was clearly Rumble and Prowl. They just gave them weird names, and those guys, they were functioning RC cars. You know what I mean? Or little track cars, because they kept the transformation simple so that all of the functioning things of RC cars or remote control cars, they kind of have a lot of the similarities of an electric car on a small scale, which is what I always, but that's a whole other argument when it comes to that, if electric cars could exist in real life, but that's a whole other story, and a whole other argument. But the point is that we've seen that with Transformers before. Through the Tyco RC, it shows like, if you wanted to do something that's a functioning car that actually propels forward and still transforms, and has working axles and working gears and everything, the RC Tyco set did that with those two characters. But of course, you look at the transformation and you're like, it's nothing. It's something along the lines of the throttle bots, if you will.
I kind of feel like this could, like, if you really, really wanted to make it into a quote-unquote mech, like, I think you would have to probably ditch the humanoid aesthetic that you're trying to hit.
Yeah. Well, see, and
make it more functional.
That's always been the thing, is that it's very possible to do it. It's just that what we got so used to as the aesthetic of a Transformer, which is, like you said, a very humanoid kind of shape, and especially when, again, I always refer to Jazz and Prowl because they're like the classic like simplistic transformation of chest, car front is chest, blah blah blah, rear of the car makes legs, and then everything just kind of goes from there. Right away, like just that classic aesthetic sets everything in a tizzy. When you look at something like Optimus Prime, that one becomes a little more realistic. Optimus Prime's transformation, I feel, is one that could exist in real life, because all of his wheels from top to bottom stay in the same place when he transforms. He just got, his legs just straighten out. So you could isolate the engine, which is in the chest, and everything, well, in the lower abdomen anyhow, and everything just kind of stays in place. The only thing is, I would worry that over time of him standing up, his brake lines, or alternatively, maybe they'll do a cable system one, like handbrakes, if you will.
Okay.
Those might wear out from standing up and down. I'm just trying to see it from a realistic standpoint. Let Transformers
It'll
are
probably
real.
be very top heavy. Like, you would definitely have to reinforce those legs.
Well, yeah,
because you have the weight of the people inside, then the engine, and then the cab
it's just,
itself.
I feel that Optimus Prime is one of those examples that if we did do a real Transformer that walked and it was also a functioning vehicle, that design works. That design works very well. It would be able to roll, it'd be able to move forward and backwards, it'd be able to walk, and it wouldn't interfere with the general consensus of how the mechanics of a functioning automotive car works. So he's one of those examples. But there's a lot that won't. Like, I'm just trying to go to even some that are really unique designs, where you go to guys like Ironhide and Ultra Magnus. More specifically, like, not so much Ultra Magnus as an Optimus Prime repaint, but just like, attaching to the armor in the back, like stuff like that would be a goddamn mess. There's just so much going on. Like trailers, people don't realize, like the trailers that attach, like the big truck trailers that attach to the back of cars, they have their own independent drivetrains too, and you can't mess with those. Like that's a whole other story. If you ever pass one on the highway, just kind of look under the truck bed, like the truck trailer in the back. You'll see there's like a giant separate drivetrain spinning under there. And you can't just, like Ultra Magnus, where he just would transform and you plug in the back and everything. Like anyone who owns a G1 Ultra Magnus toy, like it's there's a lot of impossible stuff going on there. But again, that's the beauty of fiction, So I mean, I don't even want to get into like the complexity of stuff like Starscream and F-51s, F-15 jets,
I would say definitely it's definitely a lot for fiction to put in the seeds of ideas that will help us get awesome stuff in the future.
Oh, of course. Of course. I mean, the old saying, everything from Star Trek sooner or later became a reality from the original series, from sliding doors to tricorders. But it's like something, again, something like Starscream, an F-15 or F-14 jet, all the twists and turns that he does would be literally impossible on a real one for it to function, because of how delicate those things are to begin with.
Right.
So so the dream is shattered with those. But again, like Optimus Prime, the quintessential G1 Autobot, leader, he could be a realistic thing. And Megatron too, as crazy as it sounds, luckily everything that makes a gun could really be isolated into one section, and it can be real. You can have a functioning gun that turns into Megatron. It won't be as huge as Megatron, but it could functionally transform, actually shoot a legitimate bullet, and turn into a robot and back into a gun again. Like there's certain ones that can exist, and there's other ones that can't. And so again, getting back to what's it called here, J-Deite Ride, they're trying to show us what they could do. And again, their way that they transform is kind of a different spin on the Jazz transformation, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, it's similar to the. I want to say it's similar a little bit to the Universe 2.0 Classics Prowl / Blue Streak and Smokescreen kind of transformation, mixed with a little bit of G1 Jazz in there. It's a little bit of both, but I mean, it's still awesome. It's still really cool. I'm kind of curious what they plan to do with this. I think it's just kind of to show what they're capable of doing for fun.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Much
I think
like you know, much like every other like car one like this that I've seen thus far. I mean, this kind of stuff, I mean, it really dates back to even the days of like when we were kids, and you'd have like monster truck rallies, and they'd have like the equivalency of a Truckosaurus.
Oh yeah.
You know, like this kind of stuff has been around forever. It's the first time we've had Hasbro / Takara give their blessing to an official company and do a collaboration together to make something legitimate, and that's why we bring it up. So yeah, it's cool otherwise, but not much else to say really.
I dig it. I would have liked to see them maybe get further along and then add on all the LED stuff, all the lights. But you know, I guess it's just to like show it off a little bit more, because I know it doesn't have any headlights. Like they've removed quite a bit on this car.
Yeah, well, just to make it functioning.
Made it very
to
bare
do
bones.
something like that kind of electrical and have those kind of wires running, you know, it's not the easiest thing in the world. To make fiction a reality. There has to be some compromises, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I still dig it though.
Yeah.